Okay, so let's take the legs out into a second position. Hi, my name is Allison. Welcome. All right, so testing this position. So if you have trouble getting into a second position comfortably, your thigh is rolling in. We're going to do a little in and out here. We want to make sure that, you're able to turn out and in. So just kind of turn out and in and see about your hip rotation here. It won't rotate very much. But just be with this out and in and just kind of play with how much this rotation rotates outward. I had this too, and when I had hip stuff, but I don't have it anymore. So I can do this comfortably and externally rotate my left leg without a problem. It was coming from the hip. The other thing that you'll notice is sometimes cross-legged positions can also be a little bit, so if you switch the cross of the legs, you might notice one side pops up. And there could be some inhibition there too. And if that's the case, sometimes we can pinpoint a little bit about where it's coming from. So we're going to focus on this whole outside line. Could be coming from the outside, could be coming from the inside, the abductors, and then these are the adductors. AB and AD ductors. We're going to also focus on glute medius here, right here. And so come on to your back. And we're going to start with something really simple. This is an internal and external rotation. You want some bend here in the knee so that your leg is not straight, and then you want to internally and externally rotate. And just notice this, and we're starting with your more organized side. So if your left leg is the one, or your left hip is the one, you want to start on the right, going in and out. And you also want to check and make sure that your pelvis isn't trying to move with the thigh bone. It's a pure rotation of your femur in the hip socket. So you can even stabilize your hips here, like I'm doing with my hands on my hips, to make sure the femur is what's rotating. All right, let's try it on our less organized side and make sure it's coming from the hip. I sometimes just like to put my hands there to feel what's going on. It's the hip. It's a pure rotation of the hip. The pelvis is sturdy and steady on the floor, not moving. And just kind of notice what's happening, what you're feeling in your body. That's going to give you some more clues as to where it's coming from. And keep in mind, it could be from the hips, but it also could be from your low back. Go ahead and roll to your side and sit up. And we're going to decompress the hip joint. So grab a block. We're going to do this little leg swing. This is one of my favorites for if there's some dysplasia or if there's some compression somewhere in the hip. So we're standing on a block and we're taking the other leg. We're letting the leg kind of relax and hang out of the hip joint and flexing the foot to make sure we don't thunk the foot or the toes on the floor here. And so what I've noticed is I used to swing my leg a ton, but my pelvis would slightly move and other people's would too. So I started to swing the leg less, and so that the pelvis doesn't move, kind of like what we did on the floor. So don't forget to breathe here. And swing, swing. All right, and just kind of notice how that might feel different. And then bring this over, and we're going to do that second side. And I always like to hang on to something, just because if you don't, you still could, it's like a good balance exercise, but you still could move your pelvis a little bit just because you're trying to balance yourself here. So it's just a pure hang and swing. And breathing in and out of that nose. Just these simple exercises give us a whole lot of information. So we're going to come back and internally rotate both thighs by stepping the feet in toward each other. And then take one of them out. Let's start on our most organized side. Keep it rotated in and shift your weight into the heel, and notice if the outside of your hip muscles are turning on as you're shifting your weight into the heel. All right, now have comparison. Let's see what's going on this other side, the least organized side. Let's see if that is turning on as much, more, or less than the other hip. So that will give you a little bit more information. Have a seat with me, and then check out that we're going to be doing a lot of this because this is the position that that we're gathering information about. How is your internal and external rotation here? Did it change any? That's going to give you more information. Yes, no, maybe. If yes, there could be some compression in the hip. Okay. We're going to do some lunging, but I want you to focus on this outside line of the foot, the ankle, the knee, and the hip. And kind of imagine this line that would connect those three ankle, knee, hip dots. And in this high lunge, you want to get real steady through your foot. Again, start with your most organized side first. Pull your thigh bone into the hip socket a little bit and connect your glutes to your foot. And then slightly, so we imagine those three dots and the line that connects those three dots. And we're just energetically going to push out into it. It's not like your knee will go way over to the left. Just want you to kind of feel into the energy on the outside of your foot. And then kind of work with your spine. You're going to lift your spine up out of the pelvis. So if your pelvis were a flower pot, your spine would be the nice, beautiful stem of the flower growing up, and you're pushing out into that ankle, knee, hip outside line. And we're going to stay here for a little while because right now we're awakening this like energetic line on the outside of the leg. Sometimes when we are unable to externally rotate in that second position or a straddle position, there's a lack of energy running through this outside line. All right, let's step out of it. And then we're going to go into our second side, which is our least organized side. So we've gathered a little information. We're going to kind of upload what we just did and download it into this second side, which may be your more unorganized side. Sink down and push out again into right here, ankle, knee, hip, and the line that connects them. Push out, thigh pulls into the hip socket a bit. And then again, here you can play with your pelvis being that stable, steady piece, and your spine lifting up out of it, up toward the ceiling. And breathing. And just noticing the difference between right and left, what you're feeling. And gently coming out, stepping out. Beautiful. All right, just notice on the floor, we're going back into straddle or second position and noticing that internal, external rotation here. And do your toes still kind of pull in on that one side? Or are they more able to externally rotate from the hip? What do you feel in the hip? I'm kind of like moving around so you can wiggle and jiggle around like I am, just to kind of glean a little bit more information. So these are your adductors. We're going to be kind of testing to see if those are like, let's say, being overused. And we're going to take this strap and make a loop like I am. But sometimes your adductors pull too hard in toward each other. And this exercise can teach them or retrain them to be able to relax a little bit, even when they're pulling in, and also train a little bit more abduction. So we're going to start by lying on your back. And we're going to be working subtly here, which means we're not going to be squeezing real hard. I'm going to start with the block at its widest, and you'll squeeze gently on the block. And I want you to squeeze, and whatever that is, we're going to call it 100%. And then cut that in half, squeeze 50% effort, and then again 20% effort. And we're going to work at 20% or maybe even less. Squeeze, relax. Squeeze, relax. Squeeze, relax. Squeeze, relax. And squeeze, relax. Good. All right, now we're going to take the block. We're going to flip it to 6 inches wide, so medium width. And then we're going to squeeze and relax. And make sure as you're squeezing and relaxing, that squeezing and relaxing, you relax completely on the squeeze and on the relax. Still working at 20% effort, squeeze, relax. Squeeze, relax. Good. Now taking the block 4 inches wide, and we're going to squeeze still at 20% effort, relax. Squeeze, relax completely. Squeeze, relax completely. You might feel your adductors not being able to relax completely. That's more information on what's going on. Squeeze, relax. And we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to do some abduction. So we're going to put this loop on like a skirt. And then we're going to do it those 3 dimensions again. So I'm going to grab this block over here and put it between my knees just to kind of measure off and make sure I've got approximately 9 inches wide. Yep. And then we're going to press out into the strap and relax. Press out 50%, press out 20%. All right, now we're going to work at 20% only. Press, relax. Press, relax. Press, relax. Press out, relax. Now we're going to cinch the belt a little bit to about 6 inches wide. And press, relax. Just notice what's going on. Press, relax. Notice if your adductors want to get involved in abduction. Press, relax. Press, relax. 2 more, press, relax, and press, relax. Good. 3 more. Tiny little presses, and then cinch. Measure off 4 inches wide. All right. Breathing, press, relax, press, out, relax, press, out, relax, out, relax, out, relax, and out, relax. Relax your belly and let your pelvic floor relax here. Notice if your pelvic floor was gripping as you were pressing out. That's also going to give you more information. If your pelvic floor was gripping, let's go ahead and take this off, then we know something's happening with those muscles trying to pull in on your adduction, AD and AB duction. And then we're going to check out our second position or our straddle and see what's happening. Is anything changing? And the answer might be no. We're going to do some more exercises and lead you to what is it? What is it? Okay, this is going to cross the legs. Check it out. Just notice. All right, so glute medius, hello. This is perhaps the most dysfunctional muscle that I see in the lower body. And so we're going to check it out and come into a double L sitting position. And just notice this, first of all, 90-degree angles, 90-ish degree angles. And notice the hip flexors. If they're tight, this could be affecting your external rotation. So we're going to do this simple hip flexor exercise that loosens the hip flexors. So we're going to kick the knee toward the shoulder. Kick it. It's about 6 times, I think, is what we're doing. And then going back into this position and seeing, like, does that feel better? And if it doesn't, then you want to put this block under your front hip and see if I do that, or you can actually use a pillow would be even better. And if I do that, does this back hip feel a little bit better? And I want to push my back leg into the floor. That block was a little too high for me. So I'm going to push this back leg and foot down into the floor and see if I can feel the outside of my hip engage right here. And if yes, then that's a good sign. Let's do our other side. 90-ish degree angles on both sides. So these are kind of diagnostic exercises in a way. We're seeing how your body is functioning. We're going to kick the knee to the shoulder, 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 shoulder. And then sit. And then push the back leg into the floor. Stick that block under the hip. Actually, if you need this is the deal. The pillow is nicer to loosen that. All right, now can you push and feel that outside of the hip? As you push, is it here? Is it here? Is it not there? All right, that's going to give you some more information. We do want that contraction. So if it's not contracting, we know that glute medius is one of the things that's involved. So here's another tester, external, internal, just to see. All right, now we're only going to work this part of the hip, only on this next exercise. Lie down and grab yourself a block. This is a reverse clam, and the heel on this knee side that's on the block has to be up off the floor. So your toes are going to be on the floor to push. The knee is going to be on the block to push, but the heel is up. And we're going to push the knee into the block and feel it only on the outside of the hip, only there. Push and see if you can feel it there on the outside of the hip. Let's start with your most organized side first on all of these. So we want everything to be nice and relaxed. Your body may tilt to the block side. So here is my right side. And as you're pushing and releasing, you should feel that glute medius turning on and relaxing completely. Turning on and relaxing completely. But I don't want you to turn it on to 100%. Because you might have takeover. If you have takeover, we want to train that out. So we're going to reduce the amount of pressure and the amount that muscle is contracting. Just kind of keep pushing and relaxing. Now, here's where we don't want to feel it. We don't want to feel it in glute max. We don't want to feel it in hip flexors. And we don't want to feel it near the groin. So check it out. You might even put your hand in a location that you think might be engaging when you're doing this exercise. And if it is, then what I want you to do is less effort. Take it to your second side. And we're going to do the same thing over here. This is your less organized side. So this is really kind of where all these instructions come into play. Heel up, toes down, knee to block, tilt the body left, and push and relax. Make sure it's not in glute max, hip flexors, or groin. Put your hand in that location, feel into that area, get really present to it, breathe, and notice what's happening. If any takeover patterns are happening, reduce the amount of effort that you're using here. So you might be working at 10%, like how is this gonna affect things? Well, it's gonna start to wake up your glute medius. And come out, roll to your side, push up to seated, and then guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna test out our second position, or straddle. External, internal, external, internal. See if that improved conditions. And it doesn't mean that it had to improve 100% on any of these, but if it improved, then you know that that's a piece of a little bit of dysfunction or perhaps imbalance in the hip. Let's check out our cross-legged on each side and notice if anything changed there. You can wiggle and jiggle around. So just kind of take notes on what you've gleaned from this. And now you have a lot more information. Now notice this also could be coming a little bit from the low back. So if you think that might be anything, that's something we can do in a separate thing. So we're going to come onto our backs and do that internal, external rotation again, and just check out this position. Make sure your hips or your pelvis, isn't coming with your upper thigh. And so let's roll to our side and push up to seated. All right, and then of course we're going to check out our second position in straddle again in our cross-legged position here, to kind of move around in those two positions. And from these sort of diagnostic exercises, so to speak, we now know how to build a sort of a library of exercises that will correct the position of how the femur is seated in the hip socket. And over the course of a few months, that will change. So, as always, it's a pleasure. Thank you for tuning in. And until I see you next, take really good care.